I'm the Group Sustainability Proposition Manager at BSI. Work across all sectors, but built environment is one of my key sectors.
What was it like then back in 2013, coming in, your female, male-dominated environment, construction company?
Quite intimidating. Whilst we might have had the wettest summer over here so far, are we storing the water that we need? Fake it till you make it, which some people frown upon, but I swear by it for building your confidence. There's always a knock-on effect of the sustainability decisions that we make. I would like all governments around the world to take positive action to actually combat the climate crisis.
So what was it like then back in 2013, coming in, your female, male-dominated environment, construction company?
Quite intimidating. But I do, like, my first interview was with like a panel of 6 men and just me, and obviously I'm like, 23 years old, fresh out of university. I'd obviously done interviews before, having worked in call centres and things like that while I was at uni, but I'd never done something that was like, this is going to be my career. So yeah, it was quite intimidating.
So was that because the stakes were higher, because there were 6 people?
Stakes were higher and 6 people for like a graduate entry level role. Looking back on it, I'm like, because I've now, gone on and hired graduates and mentored graduates and stuff. And I thought, wow, that is overkill looking back on it.
Because even if you had a mixed gender, or maybe just a completely mixed panel, sitting in front of 6 people,
it was quite intimidating, but I got in that way and spent the first couple of months like going around to sites in PPE that didn't fit, hard hats like falling down my face, like drowning in the high vis and things like that. It was a lot, and I didn't drive at the time as well, and they had sites all over the country, so I was getting trains all over the place,
carrying your PPE.
And my laptop and all this kind of stuff. It was a lot.
And how did that feel for you as you were walking around in your 20s with all that stuff?
It was funny when I would first turn up on site. 9 times out of 10, I'd be the only woman there. And, I'd come walking in, like, probably from a taxi. I've had to get a taxi from the train station or something. And they wouldn't realise that I was, going to be, like, working there or whatever. And, I must have looked back then so young, and they were like, what's she doing here, kind of thing. So, yeah, it was a bit scary at first, but you got used to it. It, varied from site to site, contractor to contractor. But it was just unusual. But it was... Once I sort of got in there, I had to really like build up my confidence quite quickly. And in doing that, I think I sort of earned respect of my colleagues on the site, but I did get called like young lady quite a lot. There was always a female toilet on like in the cabins on site, but it was often just used as storage, so I couldn't even get in there. So yeah, and then you have to ask people, can someone please clear out the toilet so I can use the toilet? I'm on site all day, that kind of thing. So yeah, at first it was really daunting, but you do sort of grow your confidence quite quickly because you have to. Or back then you did. So.
When you spoke about earning your colleagues' respect, what did that look like for you, and how did you do that?
I think initially, so I was going to sites to help with things like site waste management plans. If they were doing like a BREEAM certification or something, I was helping them get all their evidence together, that kind of thing.
But back then, no one was really interested in BREEAM.
Yeah.
And site waste management plans were a pain in the backside.
Yeah, that's sort of how they saw it.
So were you the girl or the person just to be avoided because you're...
Yeah, potentially. But obviously I had a job to do going there to make sure these things, the right evidence was gathered, the right documents were filled out, that kind of thing, and the right things were happening on site that needed to be, the waste was being sorted properly, that, so on and so forth. And I had a job to do, so I just went there and did it. And if it wasn't being done how it needed to be done, I had to speak up. And I did. And I think that really helped grow my confidence, which ultimately has helped me grow my career.
Yeah. What did speaking up look like for you? Having
to say, if they were sort of huffing and puffing or, it's just a tick box exercise, that kind of thing, trying to first explain to them why it actually is important and why they need to be doing this, not just from a sort of regulatory perspective, but also for the benefit of the site and the reputation that they will have as a company and how it looks to people going past and things like that. We need to be doing these things. So it was just trying to explain those things and getting them on board, and also, saying I'm here to help you. I come to these sites to help make sure, the right paperwork's in order and the right things are happening. So, utilise me while I'm here, talk to me about the challenges you're having, and we'll find solutions to make sure you're doing the right thing. And yeah, I think they were like, oh, okay, like, not here to sort of tick a box or, crack the whip necessarily, but actually to try and help them, achieve a more sustainable site. And, we got there, did that for sort of 6 months I was on site and stuff until there was unfortunately where I was working at the time, there was a round of redundancies, and it was, last in, first out. A whole load of us went. So after doing, all those interviews and going through and learning so much so quickly, I was then back to applying to roles, and that's how I then went into consultancy. I went to Greengage Environmental as a graduate consultant to begin with, and I learned so much there. I owe a lot of my career to my time at Greengage, working on BREEAM assessments and social sustainability statements and socioeconomic studies, things like that. It was brilliant, a really broad look at sustainability across loads of different projects. Could be doing anything, from housing to multi-use sites, like communities, looking at actual like master planning and things like that. So yeah, I got really stuck in there, and that's where I learned a lot, more about what goes on in the consultancy side.
And you think you'll always stay in the consultancy side?
Well, no. So then I did end up moving to BRE eventually. So I worked on helping to write some of the BREEAM schemes. BREEAM 2018 was one that I worked on. So I moved sort of more into that sort of like technical standard side of things. And it was actually while I was at BREEAM that I really started moving more into the sort of marketing, storytelling side of sustainability in the built environment. BRE had a marketing department, obviously it still does. But there's what I always found at consultancies that I worked with, and again at BRE, you had the marketing team and then the technical sustainability people, and there was sort of not lack of collaboration, but maybe a bit of misunderstanding between the two of them, because marketing obviously wants to tell a really compelling story. The technical sustainability people were maybe more interested in that really techie detail, and you need to try and find that like happy medium, so you're telling the important story of the sustainability work, but also not running the risk of greenwashing, and making sure it's factually correct and you're not overstating or understating the claims. And that's sort of where I was able to sit in the middle, because I had the technical sustainability background, but I also had this sort of interest in and sort of educational background in that sort of marketing, communications, media, that kind of thing. So I was able to bridge the gap between the two teams and help them work better together, and that's how I've moved into what I do now.
And what is it you do now?
So I'm the Group Sustainability Proposition Manager at BSI. So I'm not...
a long title.
It is a long title. We do love a long title at BSI. But yeah, I'm not specifically focused on built environment anymore. In my role, I work across all sectors, but built environment is one of my key sectors. And given that my background is in that, I've been working in built environment for 10 years, that I do find myself naturally leaning towards it whenever I'm trying to give examples to the other sector teams of, how we can tell these sustainability stories and the benefit of doing that. I always refer back to built environment. So that's what I do now. I work on any sort of sustainability content, storytelling, partnerships, assets that go out from BSI at a group level. So across all our different services, all our different sectors, all our different regions, I try and look after all of that. Big job.
Have you got a team that you work with?
So I sit within the brand proposition team, which currently sits under the PR team. So I work very closely with head of PR and the brand proposition heads of for digital trust, which is one of our other key strategic themes, and health, safety and wellbeing. So, and we do find that a lot of the sort of campaigns and the information that we are putting out, the stories that we're telling, do cross over, because obviously there's a social element to sustainability as well, which ties in really nicely with health, safety, wellbeing. And there's also a lot of progress being made with how AI can support sustainability initiatives in the built environment, but also in other sectors as well. So we try to collaborate as much as possible to, tell those consistent stories and show the links between working and progressing in these areas.
What is it that makes a good story?
What is it that makes a good story? I think there's definitely good to have an emotional element to try and tap into what people genuinely care about. Obviously you need a compelling narrative. I think you can always go back to the basics of, what was the challenge? What was the solution? What was the outcome of that? But really sort of tying that back to what it genuinely means to people. So, at BSI, we're ultimately there to try and drive positive impact for society as a whole. So in sustainability, you could look at that and think specifically environmental sustainability, but it's more than that. It's also about, organisations being profitable, or if they're profit for purpose, being able to make the money that they need to invest back into the work that they do, like we do at BSI, and also making sure that they're able to have a long-standing positive impact on society, that social element. So to tell that story, that I always like to go back to like the sort of three main elements of sustainability, being that economic, social, and environment, and showing how they can all complement each other, and the benefits of that can be felt by your organisation, but also the people that you're impacting in what you do as an organisation. So with the built environment, you know, you could look at it like, oh, we're creating an asset or we're retrofitting an asset, and you do the job and the job is done. But in reality, the assets, the buildings, the infrastructure that we're creating today, be that retrofit, new build, you know, whatever, what we're creating today will be the buildings and the infrastructure that we are using in the future, and also future generations. So if you can look at it from an environmental, social, and economic perspective, and try and balance those three out, and look at how you can drive a positive impact in each, you're going to create a built environment that's going to last and serve people for the future. And I think if you can sort of define your purpose as an organisation, embed that in how you operate, but also in the outputs that you produce, so in the built environment, the places that you create, your job doesn't just stop when that asset is built or refurbed. Like, what you've done is going to impact people for the future. So believe that, understand your purpose, live and breathe it in what you do and what you create for people, and then tell those stories. And I think people will be much more engaged with what the built environment can do for our future.
I speak with not just my clients, but lots of people similar to you as well, being here on the podcast. And lots of people say the same thing, which is, I would love to produce a building that is really sustainable, or refurb a building really, really sustainably, but the end client doesn't get it and they're not interested, and they're driving me to do the opposite.
Right.
What advice would you give to someone that is struggling in that area to make that story more compelling, more emotional, to improve that story?
Yeah. I think, again, it comes back to sort of the purpose element and really understanding your purpose as an organisation. So I think if I was in myself a built environment organisation, I would try to think about, why am I doing what I'm doing, first of all?
So start off, so give an example then. So you're a contractor. Yeah. So you're a contractor, and you want to build or have more projects that are sustainable, because that's what the board says, or that's what your shareholders have said, or that's what you want to do yourself, but you're struggling to really get your story straight.
Yeah.
What advice would you give?
I would say, talk about the long-term impact that those buildings that you've created that are more sustainable are going to have, not only for your organisation, but for the society in which they serve. I mean, there is evidence out there that buildings with certain sustainability accreditations are more profitable in terms of sale and rental values and things like that. So there's a money element there. So you can use that to talk about, look, this building is not only going to be cheaper to run, and it's got this, you know, this green badge of approval, it's actually going to make you more money in the long run as well. But also think about the people that are going to be using that building, work, live, play, you know, whatever it is they're going to be using it for, and how the decisions that you make in its design, construction, etc., how that's going to impact their lives going forward. And that's where I come back to the purpose. So if my purpose as an organisation is to create, not just to create assets, but to create spaces, places, communities, that kind of thing, that will come through in everything that I do and create that better asset. And then that's the story to tell, that it's actually really going to make a difference for the people that live and work and interact with this building. It's going to make you more money. People are going to enjoy it more. It's going to last longer. It's going to be cheaper to run. Like, it's a no-brainer for me. And like I said, if it's that comes back to that thing of what we're creating now will be there in the future. And so why would we not want to create something that is going to be cheaper and more, you know, energy efficient to run, that people are going to enjoy more, that is going to be resilient to the changing climate and things like that? You don't want to waste your money on something that then is going to flood in 10 years' time, or, you know, even 50 years' time. It makes economic sense, and it makes societal sense to create these better assets. And I think it's that's the story.
So it sounds like from what you're saying, the starting point would be to reflect on culture.
Yeah. And if you understand your purpose and embed that in all that you do, it won't just happen within your organisation. You'll be able to show that culture, like live and breathe it to the people that are buying your buildings, renting your buildings, partnering with you, that kind of thing. And I think that's the story to tell. Like, we believe in this and look at all the benefit that it's going to bring. And there is evidence out there to back it up. It's not just a greenwashing claim. The evidence is there. Use it to tell the story, to back up what you're saying. And I think people will buy into it more.
One of the things that I have observed just in general business and things outside of the construction industry, or what may be deemed as sustainability, is there have been significant changes. So I'll give you an example of the BlackBerry, the old BlackBerry
phone. I used to have one of those.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's a bit archaic now because of what we've got now. But the jump from what we had before, I remember having this Nokia, and I even had the old Matrix flip phone.
Yeah.
I thought I was the coolest thing
in
the world when I had that one.
Remember the Motorola, and you could change the aerial, it would flash.
That's exactly right. It was great.
But
there was this huge shift, wasn't there?
Yeah.
To the BlackBerry, and an even bigger jump to the iPhone,
the proper smartphones.
Or the it's now deemed as the smartphone, but the real pioneers in that area were Apple.
Yeah, they are a good example of telling that sort of that compelling narrative, right? So a phone was a phone to make calls on.
Functional, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what it did. And then it became a smartphone. And they don't just say, oh, this is a phone that you can go on the internet or you can access your emails or whatever. They've told a story that it is literally like access to information at your fingertips, directions. You're lost, your phone. You need to call someone, obviously your phone, but you want to find out about that actor that you've just seen in that movie and now you can't remember where he's come from. It's all there at the tip of your fingers. They've sold it as like an extension of your arm, effectively. And that makes it, now we don't just see them as phones. We see them as, a fundamental part of our lives. And I think it's because they didn't just talk about I use this thing in marketing called like the FAB method. So FAB,
F-A-B.
Yeah. So define the feature. So with the iPhone, okay, you've got any smartphone, other providers are available. So with your phone, you've got the feature is it has access to the internet.
Yeah.
And then the A is advantage. What's the advantage of that? Well, you can go on the internet whenever you want. But then what's the actual benefit? What does it really mean? And the benefit would be, access to a world of information at your fingertips. And that's the line that you use in your story. Not it has access to the internet. Great, you can get information when you need it. It's that benefit bit. So if the building is like, it's extremely energy efficient. We just got the best EPC ever and BREEAM's given it a gold star, outstanding stars, or, whatever. It's like, okay, so the feature is extremely energy efficient. The advantage of that is going to use less energy. The benefit of that is going to cost you less to run this building and it's going to produce less emissions. So if your organisation has a sustainability strategy to reach net zero by 2050 in line with the Paris Agreement, living in this building, working in this building is going to help you do that. So it's that benefit. Use that in your story rather than the feature or the advantage. Think about what it actually means to people. And that brings it back to that emotional element.
So is that method or that FAB application that you're talking about, is that applicable if you're an architect as well as if you're a developer? And
yeah, I mean, I think you can do it with any. You can do it with a pen, the feature of the pen, it writes. Why is that advantageous? Well, sometimes I need to write things down, so that's great. And then what's the benefit? Like, all of your thoughts can be penned onto paper, so you'll never forget a thing and enjoy the flow of our wall tip pen or whatever. You've got to think about it in stages because it helps your mind go to that creative element of what it actually means to me to own this pen. So, an architect can do it. M&E engineers who are, putting in, I don't know, ground source heat pumps or whatever it is that they're doing, there's always a story there to be told. But I think if you can relate it back to your organisational purpose, that helps demonstrate that story is also genuine, that it's not just something that you're doing because you have to, it's something that you're doing because it is embedded within your organisation to operate in a certain way. And, we've done research in the last year at BSI that shows that consumers are more likely to like abandon an organization or a product if they act inconsistently with their purpose. So if you can really, sort of do the deep work, like understand yourself as an organization and what your purpose means to you, live and breathe it in how you operate and your outputs as well, and then put that into your story, thinking about those benefits that you bring that actually matter to people, then I think you're going to have a much more compelling story that people can buy into.
I can hear the people listening to the podcast say, yes, I've got my own business. I'm inspired by that. I'm going to run with it. But I can also hear a group of people that are employed and that feel that they don't have a loud enough voice or a big enough impact within their organization. What advice would you give to those people?
What, for their own storytelling or to improve their organisation storytelling?
Both.
Bit of both. So I think for organisations that really want to embed that culture and, for not only for their sort of commercial benefit, but also for the people that operate within them, there are standards available that can help guide that so that you can learn from other organisations. You can actually demonstrate that you're not just saying, oh, our purpose is X, Y, Z. It guides you through how to really prove that. So again, not greenwashing that story. You're actually demonstrating that you have thought about your purpose and have embedded it within your organisation. So from an organisation standpoint, if you want to build that culture, I would say look at the standards and the guidance that are available, learn from other organisations that are really living and breathing their purpose. And I think it's a really beneficial thing to do because your employees and your team members will buy into that story as well, and they'll naturally be telling it when they're talking about your organisation. I think for people within their organisation, if you feel like your organisation is somewhat lacking purpose or you don't understand your organisation's purpose, what's to stop you from starting an internal group to explore that together? What does your organisation mean to you? What would you like to see coming from the top down as well, and start a sort of engagement and collaborative group to explore that and get your senior leaders involved as well, and your other stakeholders, speak to your clients, find out what they think of you and what they understand of your purpose, and you could start it from the ground up. That would be really authentic, and a lovely thing to see. But I would definitely recommend looking at the guidance that's out there, because it's the same as when you try and do some work on yourself and you try and think, who am I? What do I want to be? That kind of thing. You have to dig a bit deep. And I think, organisations, be it in the built environment or any sector, have such a opportunity to impact society. Why would you not want to do that in a positive way? And all of that can start from understanding your purpose.
What do you love about working for BSI?
I love that it is a profit for purpose organisation. So was BRE. I'm for that. I love that. I love the credibility that comes with working for an organisation. We're underpinned by a Royal Charter. We work in so many sectors all over the world. We're a really trusted organisation. So I have pride working at BSI, knowing that we genuinely are trying to do the right thing and help our stakeholders, our clients, our partners also have a positive impact. So it means a lot to me for work for an organisation that practices what it preaches. We have a very ambitious sustainability strategy to reach net zero in our own operations by 2030 for scope 1 and 2. So I'm very proud of all of those elements. I love my team. We've got a great bunch of people working for us. We've got so many experts in all different sectors, all different fields, like just at your fingertips. We have really engaging conversations where we're not just thinking about the here and now, or in my case, sustainability, the sort of 2050 mark. We're thinking of what comes next from there. We're always sort of trying to push forward, and I really enjoy that. It's challenging, it keeps you on your toes, but no 2 days are ever the same.
What is it that you do to keep the connection between the marketing and storytelling and that technical element? Because I know that BSI have a lot of technical people that go into a lot of detail that are really passionate about that. Yeah,
absolutely. So, we have lots of different divisions at BSI. So obviously we're the national standards body for the UK. We also have training, certification, assurance, consultancy, there's all different types of things going on, and you'll have different experts for sustainability, digital trust, health, safety, well-being that sort of specialise, be it in standards, training, etc. So there's a lot of stakeholders involved across the organisation in all different countries, different regions around the world. So it can be hard to find a time to have a call that suits everybody and have those discussions. But I think what I try and do is I have my main sort of sector contacts. So for built environment, healthcare and pharma, food and retail, that I work with on a pretty much daily basis. And whenever we're coming up to tell a new story, we just really invite collaboration. So if that means that you're going to have a 6 a.m. call, like, our time, because then other people can join from other parts of the world, we're doing it. We'll also do an evening one to make sure they can join. We'll do one smack bang in the middle of the day if people just want to join with their lunch, they can hear what's going on. We always try and have the most collaborative approach to really pull in those expertise from the different divisions and the different type of work that they're doing, but from around the world as well, because it will always give you a different perspective. It's different. In my case, obviously, it's sustainability, different sustainability challenges in different regions. So it's important to make sure we touch base with all of those.
What collaboration do you do with universities and places of education?
Universities and places of education. So we offer a lot of different training courses. I believe some of those are available to universities. We also have people come in to work at BSI on apprenticeships and graduate schemes and things like that. So I think what's good at BSI is there's sort of a constant encouragement of learning and upskilling, be that through mentoring or courses that we have available all the time through BSI, or if you want to, speak in your PDR about doing something externally as well. So people that come to us directly from university, your learning hasn't stopped there. You will continue learning and growing with us. And I believe we do have various different apprenticeships and graduate schemes available across the organisation.
I think now we're in a position where we can go to the demolition zone.
Okay.
Kerri-Emma, you have built this fantastic thing.
Modest.
I'm just conscious of the people that are listening to this and they can't see it, and I don't even think I can describe it really. It's good. It reminds me of the construction at Petra in Jordan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's what it reminds me of. I've been there once before, and it's kind of it's grand. It's great. What does it represent?
It represents the myth that sustainability in the built environment is just a tick box exercise, because I don't believe that to be true.
Where does that show up?
What, in my tower?
No, where does that myth show up?
I would say I first came across it working on site, and the guys on site maybe not necessarily understanding why they had to do certain things, like we spoke about earlier, that the site waste management plans were a pain, or so on and so forth. And I think it goes back to not understanding that sort of ripple effect of the actions that you take to be more sustainable right from the construction phase all the way through. So, if you're using less water on site, obviously that's great. You're not contributing to the water security issue. And you might think, that that's not a big deal. But like we said, water security is actually going to be a really big challenge coming forward. So it does have, excuse the pun, a ripple effect, like a knock-on effect. If every construction site can use less water, then we have more water available for the rest of society. If you build a more energy efficient building, like we spoke about earlier, it's going to be cheaper to run. It's going to have less carbon emissions, which is going to support the occupier's sustainability strategy if they're working towards net zero. If you incorporate a green roof, you might think, why are we having to plant these specific species? And we didn't water them, they're dead already or something. But if you actually, take care of a green roof, you are contributing to the ecological value of the site. Other, wildlife species may come there. You'll get bees, you'll get birds coming there. But also the people that use the building have somewhere nice to go on their lunch break, which improves their well-being. So there's always a knock-on effect of the sustainability decisions that we make in designing construction and then, the ultimate operation of a building. And so whilst you may well check a box if you're going for a certification standard, you may tick it and say, yes, we have achieved that point for that scheme. That's great, but there's also going to be a long-lasting effect of the decisions that you make. So, tick your box is good because there will be a ripple effect from that.
Good. I love that. And I totally agree with the concept that you're talking about there, is that every action has a reaction. And so whatever it is that you're doing to improve, be that green roof, you touched on one of them. I think the other one as well that I find really interesting is that it prevents that urban heat island effect. Is just that simple thing of having foliage around.
Absolutely. And also, you know, if you're placemaking, if you're actually developing, you know, a whole community, the more green space that you have, it's a nicer place for people to be. That's always going to draw people in wanting to rent there, buy homes there, you know, things like that. It's important to have green space. So the knock-on effect of that is huge.
What do you know about biophilia?
Yeah, so biophilia, designing the inside spaces to feel like you're at one and at working with nature and experiencing nature. My cousin is actually a print designer. She designs interiors and wallpapers and things like that. And her whole ethos is about bringing the outside in. So she hand draws different plants, different wildlife species, things like that into big wall murals that go up in commercial developments. And it's beautiful. Yeah. And I think it is really important. You know, we spend a lot of time indoors. Obviously, after COVID, that may be working from home indoors or a mixture of hybrid, things like that. But, you know, we spend a lot of time indoors, and it's important to keep that connection with nature. And I think biophilic design is brilliant, whether that's in your interiors or if you're incorporating internal green walls, you know, using more natural materials like wood and things like that. I think, yeah, it's great. Love it. My whole house looks like a jungle, so... And it's got a lot of my cousin's wallpaper up as well, so big fan.
Love that. Good. Well, I think we're now at a place where you can just destroy that myth.
Thanks. So I'm gonna tick the boxes first. There we go. And then there's the ring. So yay!
I love that. That is great. That is great. Good. I'm wondering now if you could just help me understand what you would do if you had a magic wand. Mm-hmm. And you could do one thing with that magic wand, or get anyone to do anything. What would you use that magic wand for?
Can I say that I would get the national lottery numbers?
That's what you do?
No, I'm only joking.
Would you wait for a rollover week?
Yeah, probably. No, I think I would like all governments around the world to take positive action to actually combat the climate crisis. I think it's the biggest threat that we are facing as a society, and we need to work together to overcome it. And I think whilst going to COP and attending COP and things like that is great, we need to see the action in every single country. So I would wave the magic wand to get them all on board with reaching net zero by 2050, because again, the knock-on effects of that will not only be mitigating the impacts of climate change, but also will help many other areas of sustainability in terms of our, you know, the social benefit, the economic benefit from new industries coming forward, and, you know, new ways of producing energy, but also other areas such, you know, wildlife habitats and water availability, all sorts of things. So I would wave that magic wand and have every country taking positive action towards net zero.
Have you been to COP?
I haven't been personally. BSI does go every year, and we will be there again this year. So
what benefit is COP?
I think bringing net zero to the public forefront, obviously it does, you know, it gets a lot of press and media coverage, so that's great. It gets people talking about it, bringing world leaders together to have those discussions. What we need to see is, you know, the action afterwards actually taking place. So I think there's always value in encouraging collaboration and a dialogue as to how we can get there. We just need to see those actions happening next. But again, you know, yes, we need governments to buy in and do what they say they're going to do, but organisations have a big role in that as well. And it's a lot for organisations to take on, especially with, you know, sort of SMEs trying to achieve net zero. It's challenging, but it's not impossible. And there are organisations out there who can help. There are tools available that can help, you know, that. And it's not all just about spending money, you know, to get these tools. You know, you can collaborate with organisations that are trying to drive this forward, or use other resources that are available, such as the ISO net zero guidelines that BSI worked on. We brought together thousands of experts from all over the world and launched them. I think it was at last COP, or maybe it was the one before. But that's like providing a common framework to sort of help make sense of that somewhat fragmented like policy landscape, all in one place, step by step of what you can do. That's available to everybody.
Is it free?
Yeah.
How will someone get hold of that?
You can find it through our website or through ISO.
And how does that actually work? Is it simple for someone just to go through that, someone that's got no experience in this area at all, or do you need to engage with a specialist after looking?
No, I think they've created it so that all different organisations, you know, and people working within them, wherever you are on your maturity journey, can pick it up and okay, you might have already done this bit, so we'll start from here, or no, we're starting right at the beginning, or actually we're quite advanced, but we want to go further. Anyone can use it. And if it's something that people are interested in and want to know more about, they can get in touch with the ISO team and BSI, facilitating those conversations to understand how they can really put it into practice. We have a new sort of case study brochure coming out soon that demonstrates some of the organisations that have used it and what their experience was. So that's definitely something to look out for, to understand how to actually put it all into practice.
Love that. Good. I just want to go through a couple of quick fire questions.
Okay.
If you're up for it. So share an instance where a creative problem solving led to a more sustainable outcome in your project.
Okay. I remember many years ago when I was working in consultancy, working on a mixed use development going up. So apartments, shops on the bottom, green
Mixed
space, etc., etc. And we used to do the sort of socioeconomic assessments to calculate, on average, how many children we thought would be living based on the tenure of how many bedrooms in each apartment, that kind of thing. And you get there might be 105.6 children or something, when you've done the calculation, and of varying different age groups and how close they would be to that green space. Some of them, it was going to be too far based on their age. So we had to look at how we could incorporate green space into this mixed use tower block so that those younger children would still be able to access green space if they can't walk as far to the park. We put it to the developer in question and actually ended up taking out a couple of apartments to create a sort of somewhat internal, green space that families could go and enjoy in that apartment block. And the developer, credit to them, was all for it, despite them losing a couple of apartments there. They saw the value in actually creating a space that everyone could access. And yeah, that was great. But we were looking at it where are we going to put it? It had to be on a certain side so that it would get enough light and all this kind of thing. And yeah, it was great.
What advice would you give for someone just finishing university interested in a career in sustainability?
Volunteer where you can. I appreciate that's not something that's accessible to everyone if they have to work another job, while they're trying to get into their career. But if you can, try and volunteer to get some work experience with different, you can look at different charities even, depending on which sort of area of sustainability that you want to get into. But just, I would say, apply at anything and everything that is related to sustainability, because I didn't necessarily think that I would end up working in the built environment. I'm very glad that I did. I worked in the built environment for 10 years and learned so much about sustainability from an angle that I hadn't really studied at university. So even if it might not be the sector that you thought you wanted to go into, doesn't matter, because you're still going to learn something new and it's still going to be an opportunity for you to create positive impact. So I would say apply anywhere and everywhere and show willing to learn from different sectors and go for that. And if you are in a privileged position to be able to volunteer to get some work experience, absolutely do. It's great. You never know what contacts you'll make as well.
How do you manage stress?
How do I manage stress? Take my dog for a walk. And sometimes have a glass of wine. No, I take my dog for a walk mostly. So I have a little rescue dog that I rescued from Romania. She was a little street dog. And I walk her 3 times a day. Make sure I always get out. Even if it's raining, she does not want to go, but I make her go. She's got to stretch her little legs as well. But yeah, I find just being outdoors really helps me. So yeah, walking Scout, my little dog.
What would you give as your first piece of advice to any mentee that you would have?
Fake it till you make it, which some people frown upon, but I swear by it for building your confidence. Because if you're in a position where, I don't know, you're in a new role or something like that, somebody believes that you can do this job or you wouldn't have been there in the first place. So you've obviously got the skill, the talent, the personality, the interest there that someone has seen and thought, wow, yeah, this person can do this. So if you're struggling with imposter syndrome, or you're thinking, oh my God, this is all too much, just fake that you are confident, and you will become confident, and you'll be surprised what you can achieve. I also swear by one of my friends tagged me in LinkedIn on this today, because when she was going to a job interview, she was so nervous, and I told her to go into the bathrooms just before you're about to go in and make big shapes, and sort of jump around a little bit, get your adrenaline going, because it just does wonders to bring out the absolute best in you. So that you feel confident going into that conversation. So fake it till you make it, make big shapes, and believe in yourself, because you wouldn't be there otherwise.
Lastly, what are you grateful for?
What am I grateful for? Wow, so many things. I'm very grateful to the people that have mentored me throughout my career. Mitch Cook at Green Gauge, Shamir Gumrah at BRE, he's now at NHS, taught me so much and gave me opportunities that I had the imposter syndrome and thought, oh my God, I can't do this yet, I'm not experienced enough. And they believed that I was, and they coached me and they taught me a lot, and they're part of the reason why I am where I am today. So yeah, I'm very grateful to them sharing their experience with me.
It's been great having you here on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
I am really grateful for your wisdom, for your effort, and for you making big shapes in the bathroom.
Building up my confidence. So thank you so much for having me and inviting me on. It's lovely.
It's been great. Good. Thank you.
Thanks.